Hello everyone, welcome to our week 2 recording about case-based learning. And before we do that, there are a couple of items I want to go through with you that are regarding assignments and the like for this week 2. So let me go to my computer screen and let's work through a couple of those. Let's work through a couple of those items. First of all, the resource sharing. Resource sharing activity is due next Monday, the 8th, September 8th, as it shows here. This is from the week 2. Resource sharing is an opportunity for you to write for a public audience in a blog, in your Blogger account, and you look through this and read through what the assignment is. Essentially, what we're looking at are the topics for this week. So whether you want to approach case-based learning or the specific cases that we're looking at with digital learning, online and blended learning, you could use those as the resources that which you want to focus on. So as you are reading your assignments and the articles there, you can choose the direction to take, or if you find something else within this area that we're speaking about, then go out and find an article that is on the internet or in the university's article system, that's databases that are in the library's link. You can link into the library, and that same link is in the course information section of the course. Use your credentials, your username and password. Look for some articles there that support this reading or are different from this reading and provide other ideas. So we need at least a minimum of 2 references. We want you to cite them. Now in a blog, it's very difficult to keep the full APA format, the spacing and such. We're really not looking for the spacing for the resource sharing. We are looking for the spacing in the APA formatting for the assignment, the group assignment, either a group of 1 or a group of 4, depending upon how you've aligned yourself here for this assignment that's due next week. In this RSA, you should use the appropriate APA formatting, which I'm going to demonstrate that to you in a momentarily. But single space it and include a small reference section. So the references are important. Although the formatting, you're probably not going to get the margins correct. The margins aren't important. I would suggest that you write this in a Word format, Microsoft Word or other word processor, mainly so that you have a copy of it in case something happens to Blogger. And I recommend that you do that for everything that you're doing here in the course, even your discussion board, your initial 250 words. If you were to write that into a word processor and then copy and paste it in, that way you have a record that you did this, and should something happen to Blackboard, then you have the means of being able to reproduce it easily without rewriting and rethinking the entire thing. So post this resource sharing in your Blogger account, and there are some notes there to follow about how to title it and so on, and do that. In addition, this case study about digital learning is due next week as well. Now, this particular assignment does need the APA formatting, and let me share a sample with you. Now, this is a rather longer project, but it will show you how you can use that APA template that is in the week 1 wiki. Those are additional items I've put into the course. So this is the Concordia University Chicago cover page. This is the student has given me permission to use his work as a sample. So the cover page, notice it does not have any page number on it. No page number here on this. This is essentially what you would staple on to something you would submit as a paper version, but except you're not, you want to do it as electronic version. Here now is the APA cover page. It has a running head. Notice here that everything here is capitalized. So you take a shortened version. Notice his full version of his paper. The full version of his paper is here. And he then shortened it down. So this requires a shortened version, and that's all capitalized. And this is all that's required on this cover sheet. An abstract is a shortened version of the paper. Notice it is not On the left side, it is not indented. The abstract isn't. It's a shortened version of the paper, and notice it even has references in it. It includes the key points. So the key points that you have from your case study, you're going to put them in here. Your key findings, you're going to put them in here. Notice now that on this page 2, the words running head have disappeared, and we have that set up for you in the template so that you would need to re-enter the short version of your paper here on page 2, and it will carry them throughout the rest of the paper. Keywords are the words that you would use if this paper were on the internet to do a search. The search terms, the keywords. The words keywords themselves are italicized. Everything else is not. Then we come back to the main body of the paper. The main body of the paper has double spacing throughout. Everything's double spaced except the references, which I will show you how they work momentarily. Every good paper, even though we're asking for 3 pages from you, so 1 page on each school, 1 page as a compare and contrast, it also needs an introduction. An introduction is what's coming up in the paper. Here you can define the big terms, what you mean by blended online, what these terms mean with references. Also, to notice that we include the full version, the full length name of the title again, the full paper's title again. Everything here is double spaced. So we're going through this dynamic instructional design model, and notice how we APA. In particular, APA uses in a direct quote. We use, of course, quote signs. We use the author's name, the publication date, and the page number. Notice the punctuation. The punctuation appears after all of this. Notice then in this sentence how the author is noting the taking the model name, dynamic instructional design model, is at that point then using initials for it, and immediately that author then is cited. And this is really the appropriate way to cite APA. So right after, or right when the idea is presented, we give it notation from the author and the year of its publication. Technology gets cited as well. APA tells us that anything that is not a common technology, such as Microsoft Word is a common technology, Microsoft Office is a common technology, we do not cite it. However, smart software, smart notebook, smart technologies, those are not necessarily common technologies. They might be in schools, but they're not out in the workplace. Notice PowerPoint here is not cited. It's a pretty common technology. We don't cite it. Notice then how we cite the person's name. In this particular person, the student wrote the person's name and then immediately gave the year of publication. So they're going then through the dynamic instructional design model here, and this goes on. This is the final project from another course, so it goes on quite long. Notice that everything is double spaced, even between headings is double spaced. And notice it's good organization. It's excellent organization to put on your paper, to put headings there. So you would have a heading for case number 1, which you might even include the name of the school that you're looking at. Case number 2, the name of the school, perhaps, or another way that you can organize this, help the reader, and then a compare and contrast heading for that, and then at the end we want a summary or a conclusion to what we are doing. So we want to go back and summarize this short case study. So you're going to have 3 pages of content, probably about a quarter to a half a page of introduction, a quarter or a half a page of conclusion or summary to that. So notice there's a summary here. Everything always has a summary, and if we need to cite that, we do. The exception I mentioned to you a while ago was the references. Yeah, the references. Everything here is double spaced. Everything is double spaced in the references. Notice that we have a hanging indent, meaning that the second line, third line, and every successive line gets indented. There's a double space then that goes to the next author. Notice that how we italicize the name of the article or the name of the publication gets italicized. This might be a little different from what you remember. And here is a place to start. Ultimately, you may want to get a APA manual to go through. I purchased mine for a tablet, and so when I'm uncertain, I will go to a tablet, but more than likely I will go to the Purdue Online Writing web lab, the writing lab at Purdue called OWL, and here is APA guide, and in this APA guide you can find most of your questions are answered here. There's even a sample of the APA writing that's here. So it suggests that you take a look at that and you come back and use it. I'm going to copy and paste that particular URL here so that you can have it. So that paper, the group project about the case-based project you have needs to be formatted like that. It needs to be APA. It needs to be submitted as such. Now, it's impossible in a blog posting. You just don't have all of the intricacies and the precision that you have in a word processor, but I want you to include the reference page. Everything can be single-spaced. Make sure that you cite appropriately, and that's perhaps where you likely want to send me a draft of what you're writing in that RSA, and I can give you some feedback about it before it. I prefer to have you redo it or edit it, then redo it later on. There's an amount of emotion there that when you think you have something submitted and you're ready to move on, that someone asks you to redo it. I will ask you to redo it if it needs redoing, but I would prefer to work with you editing it up to the time of when it's submitted, and that would be Saturday morning at noon or Saturday at noon. If you give me a edit of your RSA and an edit of your case-based project, I will return them within 24 hours. Most likely faster, but the longest you will wait is 24 hours in regards to those items. So please consider that. It's here for you to get some formative feedback, for me to give you some help in regards to those. Meanwhile, let's look at case-based. These slides are in the course wiki, and I recommend that you use them as a reference. In case-based, as you well know, we're asking you to look at the details of what's going on in digital learning. These terms of blended and online, which we will define for you in a little while. It allows students to work in groups, to have conversations, to ask questions of each other in regarding of this. We get active participation in groups regardless of the age, whether they are older students or they are younger students. So it is group dynamic group work that's here. We are looking at constructivists' ideas, and that is to combine prior learning with newly acquired knowledge, and that newly acquired knowledge could occur traditionally with students in rows, teachers talking to students, teacher-directed learning to give students the basis for the students to learn the facts of what they need to know, and to allow them to combine those facts with what they've experienced previously into new knowledge. So we're not necessarily saying to you, just throw your classroom open to cases, let students figure out the basic ideas, and then working into the problem. So we are really looking here, if we go back to these ideas of working up our ladders of knowledge, comprehension, application, and such, we are looking at problem solving, we're looking at critical thinking. So we're looking at sort of those top three levels here of these stairs to get students beyond just giving us facts back, although we may have to check for understanding if we are involved in a learning that is teacher directed to get students to get the basic knowledge. We're then asking them to take it higher, to analyze, to synthesize, and to evaluate what they are learning. Students also need some time for, we don't often say this for students, in particular younger students, about reflection, but it is opportunity for students then to step back individually and to consolidate that learning that's occurring within the groups, for them to perhaps reread something, rethink some ideas, reconstruct their thinking. We're talking about some richer, deeper exploration of concepts. This could be through project work, time that you are taking in projects. We could turn these questions towards cases. Instead of having students doing reports, going to the library or to the internet and copying information, there needs some of that in the case, but we're talking about them analyzing it and digging deeper into these concepts. So they are analyzing idea. They are applying concepts to solve problems. How did an organization solve a problem? How did a person solve a problem? How did Henry Ford solve the issues of manufacturing cars? How is that different from the process that's used today? Compare that to Tesla and the battery car, and how that company is building cars compared to Henry Ford's case of building cars. The idea here is for students to interact with ideas, and notice how the teacher here is part of the conversation, but yet not part of the conversation. And of course, we're always interested in improving social skills and the student's cognitive skills as well. That teacher is there for purposes. So we are going to have to now look at the way that we evaluate this. We're going to have to develop not tests, not multiple choice tests, but rather rubrics and other means for us to pull out whether individual students, along with the groups of students, have found the relevant criteria, even gone beyond the relevant criteria that we are asking for these students to reach. So we need to be writing some very strong performance standards, some clear objectives that we want students to reach, and some relevant criteria. So we just don't open this up. We need to have some basis of evaluation and approving whether the student has learned the concepts, the ideas, the applications as we need them to. So it's much different from a traditional paper and pencil test. So in these groups, it's typically 3-4 students along with a teacher. And the case-based experts say that these students need someplace else to work. Well, that's likely not going to happen much in our schools unless we have spaces nearby where we can put students, but normally it's creating a station or a place they can pull desks together for them to work. Within the course this week, there's a link to a teacher toolkit. I would ask you to thumb through. It's in the section 2, along with the readings and some videos that are there. It's going to provide us the teacher toolkit may give you some insights about what you would certainly need to provide for students in assessment, the framework for their learning, whether they need hardware and software to make that work for them. So the teacher toolkit is in the reading. Please take a look. Please take a look at that. It's important for us to have authentic situations for these students to explore. For example, the Henry Ford, the car manufacturing issue would be one that would be interesting to take a look at. Things that are currently occurring in the news, such as Ebola. What are the issues of solving worldwide diseases? If we look back and have students compare polio with what's going on now and what might happen, some recommendations they might make to solve issues in world health. So all of these, in particular, authentic situations are now situations that could be compared to previous solutions to those would be very helpful. And we're trying to get them to pull out difficult, complicated issues Current issues that are not solved are certainly ones that are incredibly complicated because the experts certainly have not solved them. Within the wiki is a flowchart, an implementation approach of how you may want to look at case-based studies. Is case-based worthwhile for you to do, to devise activities and requirements? So this flowchart may give you some ideas of how to develop a case-based approach if you're going to actually apply that in your classroom, or you're going to apply this for your final project. So consider this, and you may want to be considering even now whether you would want to use a case-based approach for your final project. Now, as a teacher, you play multiple roles in this setting. You're trying to construct a framework. You're trying to help them summarize. You're trying to give them assistance. You're trying to be a consultant, and if they have a need that perhaps you can help them with, you would do that. But most importantly, of course, that the teacher plays the role of a teacher, and we should never forget that we are teachers, and from time to time it is necessary for us to intervene when students don't understand a concept. They have a concept completely wrong, and it is important for us to help them get back on track as we need to. But we provide a whole variety of services to them, and one of them is being their teacher, to provide context. That's what we do. We provide context. We provide explanation. We provide examples when we need to. It may be necessary to sit knee to knee with a group when they don't have a concept, and it's fundamental to the case and understanding and analyzing the case and getting them on track. You set this environment. After all, it's not necessarily a free-for-all of going off in a direction. There's certainly things that we want them to look at. We want them to address. We do set a framework for them. We set the framework for them with our knowledge. We set the framework with them with our objectives, with the resources we give them, and we attempt as best we can to withhold comments and judgment. But as mentioned, we get in there if we need to. If the students are off course, we provide direction to help them out. We help them by sitting in and helping them summarize key issues with them. We help them put a summary together of what is going on within their case, and perhaps even what needs to be done. We help them with that process. We offer those resources, those technology resources. We offer our time. We offer perhaps, or we suggest perhaps, another expert who may be in the building who may be able to provide some helps for them. Here's what I'd like for you to do now. I'd like for you to answer this question, and I would like for you to think about what what subjects that you work with, regardless of your grade level, whether it's primary or it's high school or in between, the subjects that might support case-based learning. And this sheet is within the course wiki. I would ask that you stop the recording, that you go there, and at the lower left is a slider and a control panel of the recording, that you stop this recording now, go to the wiki, and answer this question. Next question, in this setting, how do you balance the role between teacher and facilitator, teacher and guide, in a case-based setting? How do you balance that role? Again, go to that document that's in the course wiki, answer this question. Stop the recording now. With that answered, I'd like to move on to this idea of blended and online learning to try to help you with these definitions, because they're not clear completely. The notion of these terms is my first understanding of them has emerged from the Sloan Consortium. And this is where they introduced the idea of blended learning, the word blended learning, meaning that up to about 80% of the class is online in a blended setting. Online setting is one that is about over 80% that is in the online setting. Web facilitated is up to about 30%. So from about 30 to about 80, that is what Sloan Consortium called blended learning. So we are sort of working in a blended setting according to what so we meet 3 out of 8 times, and that is considered to be blended. More recently, you may have been reading Horn and Staker, and Michael Horn has developed a new definition. Some of this occurs online, and some of this occurs in a school setting. So it's not necessarily completely out of class. So we have a blended setting according to him, but according to them, the idea that I want you to know between the difference of our blended course and the course that he's talking about for children is different. And this is the Clayton Christensen Institute. This is where Horn and Staker and Christensen published their work in regards to this. This whole blended learning continuum, which you are reading about. Over here at number 1, they talk about these rotation models, and all of you, I think, are familiar with the rotation model. Here's an example: the KIPP LA Academy, and this is where we have stations. This typically happens in reading, where the teacher may be with a reading group, and at another place, students are working. It could be a station of some sort, and yet there could be another station. It could be seat work. But at this point, we would insert computers. And the computers are working with students. Say they might be doing reading, and getting reading instruction there, or they might be getting some math instruction there. And if they're taking math instruction there, they would be working at their own place. If these were second graders, we could have a second grader working on 5th grade math, a second grader working on 1st grade math. These students are staying with their cohorts. They're not being pulled out. Could have a student who's still working at the kindergarten level, but yet sitting side by side with a student who's advanced. So the students are staying in class. They're not being pulled out, but yet they're working on materials that are computerized, computer-based instruction, computer-aided instruction. These are the other terms for it. Student is there. The computer is recording the student's progress, recording test assessment, formative assessment, and summative assessment about the student. And it's quite different from what we're doing here. We are not recording necessarily every mouse click that you do, and we're not giving you little quizzes to test for your understanding. We're testing your understanding through teacher-scored work, whereas all of the work here would be scored by the computer with math problems or with reading or such. And so students may rotate through all of these stations. In some settings called the individual rotation, that precocious second grader who's doing 5th grade math may just sit there and work on math the entire time and may never go to a teacher instructed math setting. So there is teacher instruction that occurs. There's individual, perhaps this is where your collaborative activities, your inquiry-based learning, your other types of learning occur, and then the structured, individualized online instruction that's occurring here. That is really what I consider blended learning, and that computerized instruction is heavily data-based, meaning that it's collecting lots and lots of data about students. It is collecting how much time they're spending on each section. It's giving detailed analysis of assessments, formative and summative assessments. It's measuring where there is mastery is occurring, where mastery is not occurring, and that's what's happening in those individualized settings. This online component here in these blended settings is what I consider really a blended model. We're really doing online, and online in a different way. There's another setting, rocket ship education uses these settings where students rotate actually between classrooms. And here there's direct instruction in math with a teacher, direct instruction with literacy, social studies, paraprofessionals in the learning lab doing reading, and direct instruction from social studies. So there's rotating, students are rotating between these four areas. So that is a lab rotation model. A flipped classroom, in a sense, is blended learning, but not to the degree that some want it to be. It's usually teacher-prepared materials, teacher tracking, with computer-based instruction, with computer-aided instruction, where that computer and the systems behind it are collecting lots and lots and lots of data. Teachers do not have the ability, we don't have the ability to create those kinds of systems. These are systems that are typically purchased for the true blended setting. And so they're commercially based. Our flipped classrooms are really not in that way at all. This back here to these models. In the flex model, and the flex model is where we have a central learning lab. Students go in there. They go into this lab. Could look like a cube farm. Students work on their content. Today, a student could be just working all on math, or they could divide this up, and I'm going to do some math, some social studies, and some language arts. And there are teachers there who help them within that setting. There are teachers who provide group instruction. There are teachers who provide intervention. Student may not be getting a math topic, has gone through it maybe 2 times or maybe a 3rd time, and now it's time to get some knee-to-knee instruction. Pull that student out of the central learning lab, send them to a place where a teacher can give them direct instruction, direct intervention in a very small setting. There could be a seminar, again over here where we're doing case-based study, inquiry-based instruction, group projects. It could spill out over into this part, and we have direct instruction going on as well. And those settings look like this. You may have seen these pictures already in your reading, and where a student has a computer station, student working here on a project. Over here appears to be an adult helping another student. So we have a very large center space where students have their own place to learn, yet they can go out and learn. They do go out and learn at different times and for different reasons. A student may get called out for a seminar. Mondays may be seminar day, or there might be some direct instruction on contemporary topics or application topics over here in this corner. So this is a very, very large setting. Carpe Diem School in Yuma, Arizona. This might be one of your studies. That is the flex model. The other model that is here is referred to as the a la carte model. I think before a year ago we all called this a supplemental setting. In this setting, a student is a regular traditional student, and 3rd period or 4th period or whenever it's assigned would go to a library or a lab with adult supervision and take that course that's not offered locally. Could be an AP course in a school where the AP curriculum is not offered because of enrollment of students is low, but the student goes there. So Horn calls this the a la carte model. It is it was before it was known, we called it the supplemental model, and I still do, because that would be the easiest way to explain this to a Board of Education. The enriched virtual model is the other one they talk about, and it's really a hybrid model. It's a hybrid model where students, high school students, would spend part of their time in class and part of their time out of class. Initially, these schools started out as fully online, and the adults discovered that the students needed more support from adults, and so they began to pull students physically into a school. So the students might be in school half-time, 3 days one week, 2 days another week, and so they spend some time with adults, and they spend some time on their own learning. The online model is one that is pretty big in charter schools where students are fully online, and that happens in our program here too, where students take our courses fully online, and the only time that we would really see them would be at orientation before the starts and at graduation, unless we needed to meet with them for one reason. And some instructors do meet face-to-face, in particular as we get near the final end of our course. Students then do meet with faculty to talk about these projects. Very briefly, some online blended learning. I remember when I was a kid, 5th grade, 6th grade, 4th grade, we had these SRA reading boxes. So we would go up to the box, and depending upon our reading level, we would pull out a little folder. It looked like a manila folder, except it had some reading on it and a quiz. And so we would, depending upon our reading level, while the teacher was over working with a reading group, we would go up and grab our color that we were in, read it, answer the questions, and then come back up and check our answers with the answer key. Well, this was always bound to have lots of cheating with it. You wouldn't read part of it. Teacher was over with another group. You could easily go up and look at the answers and not have to read the section. But nonetheless, the SRA reading boxes were one that was a way to help students personalize and allow them to read at their own grade. I recall in college, our chemistry instructor had us go to the library. He used some concepts called programmed instruction, where you had some audio tapes that you listened to, and then some questions that you answered. You turned over the page and the answers were there. And then you could go back if you didn't do so well. So programmed instruction is really the precursor to computer-based instruction and computer-aided instruction, where there's some instruction on the computer. Student is supposed to participate in that instruction. Then there are some questions to answer, and then the computer responds whether those questions are correct and incorrect. And if they are at a certain level, the student can move on to the next section. If not, student goes back and reviews and retakes the quiz again and again to the level that the teacher needs to intervene at that point. So that's programmed instruction, and it's been used for a long time. The military has used programmed instruction to train recruits. It's very, very effective, but it's not very boring. But yet we've put programmed instruction aside because it's not fun, but it is effective. In contemporary blended learning, some of you might be familiar with Read 180. Read 180 is a blended learning where there is some whole group instruction by a teacher. There is some small group instruction followed by some instructional software and some independent reading. So we get this whole group instruction here. We get a whole group wrap up at the end, and so this is blended learning in a high school setting, a middle school setting, secondary setting. This takes about 2 class periods to go through this process, and we use it for interventions. This is blended learning. We also have Lexia. Lexia is used, my experience has been used at elementary levels, and it too is a blended learning cycle where there is some teacher-led instruction, some independent instruction, and then of course this data comes out of these instructional systems to tell the instructor where the student is, whether the student's progressing, and so the cycle continues. This is also blended learning. Blended learning has come forward in the past decade, mainly as an instructional strategy for students who are struggling. It's there at the fringes for intervention is where Lexia and Read 180 have been implemented. Our final question here is just tell us a little bit about your experience with online and blended learning as a student or teacher. So if you would stop the recording now and answer that question that's in the wiki. Finally then, take note of these definitions of online and blended. The real challenge for us is the notion of where blended learning is now. Blended learning means lots of things to lots of different people. I call our setting a hybrid setting. A setting that has highly based computerized instruction, lots of data behind it. That is what I refer to as the true blended setting, because students can advance at their own rate. They can move along at their own rate, as opposed to the curriculum that we have balanced for them. So I consider this a hybrid setting. Christensen, Horn, and Staker considered this blended learning. I think that we need to differentiate the terms further. I can't explain, I can't step up to a podium for a Board of Education and say we're doing blended learning without 10 minutes of explanation. If we can get some terms like supplemental. Well, supplemental tells me this supplements the curriculum. A student goes to a computer at some time during the day to take their additional material. That's pretty explanatory. But blended learning and then go down a whole list of what we're doing is really a challenge. And that's been my feedback to Staker and Horn about what this is. It's not clear enough yet to give to a Board of Education without lots and lots of description that takes lots and lots of time. So case-based, the cases that we're asking you to look at are in regard to online and blended learning, and I look forward to talking with you this week and working with you in this regard. Please feel free to contact me, get a hold of me as you need assistance, as you want to submit components for me to review to get some formative assessment. Thanks much for being in the course. Thanks much for being here, and we'll be talking to you very soon.